Wow. 800 hours. Alright, here we go. It has been over a year since Princess Connect released on global, and I wouldn't say it's the smoothest game that was released. It had its up and downs, but looking back at it to the present time, I think it ended up being a fairly stable game over time. The game actually can target both casual and competitive players alike. You might think that this might be just a casual waifu collector, but wait. That's a guy? What are these exo sheets? What do you mean my character's brick? What's up everyone? Welcome to the start of my late game series review. In this series, you will see me review games talking more about the late game state, maybe a month old, maybe half a year, maybe over a year, or maybe over many years. I decided to make this series as I look into game reviews for ongoing games, and I kind of noticed that many game reviews talk about the early game, not a lot talk about the late game. This is kind of especially true for gacha games. A lot of the experience that the player will get is really more about the late game. What does the game kind of feel like after a month in? What are the daily routines like? What kind of events can the player expect? How is the game developer or publisher overall treating the players over time? Is it really free-to-play friendly? How's the community like? To start off with the series, I will be covering about my experiences over the past year in Princess Connect. First, let me talk about my record in game and playstyle. I was actually playing this game with 2 accounts for a year. Actually it was 3, but I kind of stopped with the third one after about 4 months or so. One account is a whale for 1 year, and dolphin. I don't know anymore how people categorize these, but yeah. I got all the characters on one account for over a year, and then another was a fully free-to-play account. If you actually didn't know, so Princess Connect actually had a soft launch 1 month before the game's official release. The game started roughly around mid-December before the release, and mid-January. In my first account, I obtained all the characters and any new characters that were coming out as the game progresses. For my first half year, the guild that I was in was consistently in top 10 of the clan battles, and we have reached top 1 before. The second account was a little bit more casual. It was a free-to-play. I mainly joined it with a guild with a few of my friends, and we were actually consistently in top 150 during that time. I've experienced a lot of what the game had to offer, and probably experienced the game at multiple different angles, whether it was kind of casual, whether it was competitive. But moving on. Alright, so let's talk about the basic mechanics of the game. I'm going to assume that not everyone has played the game, so I'll give it a rundown of the game. First, let's talk about the combat system. In terms of user input, this game has one of the easiest user action that's required. Yep, just click. But if you think that's really it, can't miss a bit here, can't miss a bit here. We can't miss a bit here. Crit Gita, crit Gita. No crits, fuck. Okay. Ah, shit. Okay. Alright, bubble vision coming in. Okay, that's good. Critical, okay. Esports. Did I get it? 12K? Oh, I got it again, chat! Fuck! Holy shit, we're popping off right now. Woo! Woo! Let's go! This game can get pretty intense. For majority of the time and majority of the players, there's one amazing button that actually clears majority of the content for you. Heck, even now I use it a lot even for majority of the endgame content. Just simply autoing isn't going to clear the content. Having the correct units that fit the battle, having enough levels or gears or investment is also part of the gameplay. The game expects you to have a good amount of varied units to clear the content. If somehow you're lacking on many of these aspects, of course that single button isn't going to do anything, but that doesn't mean that this game doesn't have any challenge. The action of clicking skills sounds simple on paper, but if you're competitive and want to be in a competitive clan, this actually changes. How you end up approaching the battle mechanics during clan battle is completely different. Progressing through the story may face some roadblocks in game. Typically, there's a few things that you will end up changing in order to progress further, like improving your level, gearing up your units, or swapping other unit to accommodate the enemy skill or targeting. Actually, even now, that's how you will progress through majority of the content. If you choose to be on a competitive clan, however, this game feels like a completely different game. The main juice of what a lot of people are very active on in this game is clan battle. Let's talk about clan battle. Clan battle, to explain it in simplest terms, is just a series of boss fights. Boss shares the same HP pool within the clan. Your goal as a clan member is to attack the bosses. Each member can only attack 3 times a day in clan battle, and you use 5 units per attack. You cannot reuse the same unit that you've already used, but the only exception is the unit that you borrow from your clan member. So at minimum, to become a very active or functional member, you need to raise at least 12 units. Different units will actually be used in different bosses, so it actually might be more than just 12 units. Once you have killed all the bosses revive again, and after a certain amount of times doing this, the bosses get stronger. If you wish to be competitive in this game, most of your decision will revolve around clan battle. What banners are you going to pull? What units are going to be upgraded? What specific levels and gears do I need to set on this particular units? Don't you dare click this button. Oh, you accidentally clicked that? Oh, sorry, it's to say, but your unit is brick. That's just talking about things outside of the game battle. In terms of actual execution of the clan battle, there's a few things in order. Having a proper team composition is one. Having all the units doesn't necessarily mean you know the best units against this boss. Top guilds typically have one or few dedicated people who does research on which units are optimal against one boss. Timeline execution. In almost every game, it's universally known that auto doesn't do the most optimal damage. Versus Connect is not any different in this regard, since the game constantly moves and it's not turn-based. The timing of skills end up becoming very important. We're talking about milliseconds or microseconds, precise at the very top high-end level. Lining up your buffs along with your debuffs, using the proper order of skill. This sounds simple, but when you start seeing the efforts of top clans, you end up thinking twice about it. Since Princess Connect have typically no RNG in terms of character gears, levels, and skills, or anything that progresses your character, you can replicate almost each fight. This allows people to keep using the same thing as everyone else and pretty much do the same action in order to min-max the damage. That doesn't necessarily mean that each battle is going to be exactly the same. When your unit dodges, when your units get stunned, slightly mistime your action, when the boss does critical damage, many different things can cause the runs to be slightly different, and guilds have a timeline they typically follow so that each members can maximize their damage as long as they follow the timeline. Coordination. All of these factors are where all the timeline matters. A top guild will have a bunch of different team compositions and a bunch of timelines and a bunch of different scenarios in case when the run goes slightly different. Not only that, they have all organization where they allocate who or what attacks at which bosses and the coordinations of the timings of the attacks. There's a bunch more strategies, of course, and I'm just kind of scratching the surface on this when I'm just describing it right now. The game feels extremely different when you're in a very competitive clan during clan battle. And I would say majority of people are actually not going to experience this. But I think it's worth noting to kind of talk about this a little bit because this is one of the main things that the tryhards, the competitive people, are what they really like on this game. But obviously, I would say majority of the people actually probably have not experience what I've been talking about, most people are actually just probably trying to struggle to survive on these bosses, and I would say that's fine. There's no reason for you to sweat on that one, but yeah. Wow, okay, so I just kind of basically talked about what makes Princess Connect very different from your typical click auto gacha game. The clan battle in this game is one of the most unique competitive experience I've had in gacha. I say experience because there may be some similar mechanics or idea on other games out there, but in terms of competing with the guild, there's so much small details that you end up doing. I'm not saying that this is the only good thing about this game, but this competitive clan battle definitely was one of the most impactful and fierce experience for me when playing this game. Okay, I spent a lot of time there, so now let's talk about other things in the game. I may have mentioned this a little bit earlier, but let's kind of briefly talk about the upgrade system, or how do you progress or get stronger. There's many ways to upgrade your characters, whether it be gears, duplicates, levels, skills, unique equipment, or whatever else. For most of them are pretty straightforward except for one thing. First, let me talk about the elephant in the room. The one thing that a lot of people hate the most in the current iteration of the gear system. Alright, in the most basic sense, gearing up is basically when you have enough gears that you have farmed through farming just normal regular content, story content, event content, and what have you, and just basically ranking up. And once your unit ranks up, it's gonna just get more stats, as you can see here. And then in addition to that, there are levels, and when you get the level, the unit is gonna level up, and that's also going to be the cap for their skills. And once you kind of just increase their level, their maximum skill is going to be matching whatever their max level is, and this max level is basically based on your own account level. There's also ascensions where you will need duplicates of the character or shards, what we call them, and whenever you have the character already, you gain shards instead of them when you pull gacha. And there's also other ways to kind of get them, and this is when you use the divine amulets and then just buying more on these. And how to get these divine amulets is whenever you do gacha, you get duplicates, and naturally as a free-to-play player you will end up getting more of these over time. And when you want to rank up your own unit, you will just keep accumulating these resources. And once you can get those resources, that's kind of going to ascend the character. And when you ascend the character, they will increase their stars. So from 2-star here, and you have enough memory shards, you will increase them, and their star level will become 3-star, for example, from here to 2-star to 3-star. And then there's also unique equipments where upgrading them, equipping them will end up allowing you to have additional stats, and also it will enhance one of your skills. So for example, for this one, when you have this unique equipment, your skill will end up getting additional effect on them. So this one lowers physical defense and magic defense in the enemies. And if we look here without it, the basic skill is just doesn't have those additional effects. Sometimes they kind of use this way to rework some of the units or make them viable more with the later iteration of the game. At the most basic sense, that what is gearing up here is. However, what I'm gonna just talk about a little bit after this is just how different it is once you are in an actual like late game in a very try-hard or competitive clan. I'm just gonna talk about my experience about it, and just to kind of give some perspective to people who are probably not aware of what some of them do. As a disclaimer, this is not how everyone will be doing it, For majority of the people, they likely do not care about what I'm just going to talk about, but it is kind of worth noting because it is what some people talk about, and sometimes it's a topic within the community. The gear system is probably one of the most complex things currently right now. Obviously, this is gonna be upgraded or improved on later on in the future, but as the current states right now on global, it is very complicated. Most people, what they end up doing is they end up referring to a guide, or someone put up the guide of how to make sure that you're upgrading your units the most efficient way possible. A few things, for example, as you notice here is, let's say on this particular character, I can equip all of these, but I'm not really exactly equipping them. Technically, I guess I could equip this one, but I'm not equipping all of them because if I equip all of them, it actually could cause some issue if I upgraded everything because of some timelines. And what I mean by timeline is when people are expecting her particular skill to be up, but then because of how she had, let's say, more defense and HP, what ends up happening is she ends up receiving less damage, and in return she would have less generation in order to energy regeneration before she can end up using her valuable skill. And so in many situations, there's some people that try to min-max characters in such a way that you are actually withholding upgrading some equipments so that your character is efficient and can follow the timeline properly. In this situation, I had to not upgrade or not equip these particular equipments that try to increase the defense, because if I do, then I could end up not reaching like a particular timeline that I want to. And to boot to that, there are some skills out there that will reduce the enemy's attack, and if you reduce the enemy's attack, they will deal less damage and you would regenerate less energy because they're dealing less damage to you, which sometimes you don't want that to happen. You want the enemy to deal more damage so that your skill will come up earlier. And so there's definitely other different complex things about it. I'm just kind of talking at this on the basic level. There are different ways to build, for example, this unit that I'm kind of showing right now. There's different ways to build this unit. Some people have maxed it out, some people have different levels on this skill. I just kind of didn't really care too much on this. That's really one thing that a lot of people really hate on this game, because if you click this optimize, it will upgrade the unit, and then it will also automatically upgrade the skills, and it will also automatically equip these equipment. And sometimes you don't want that to happen, and that's why some people just have the terminology break. Yep, when you click that button and somehow your unit is bricked because it's too late to come back to it. Over time though, the bosses do get stronger over time, and so you need to rank them up to keep up with it. And so it's not necessarily bricked in that sense, but there are some units out there where if you end up like over leveling the skill, it destroys what they are used for. This one I ended up over leveling my skill, and it made my timeline a lot more difficult because I was trying to follow a timeline that someone posted, and it's not working out for me because somehow I ended up over leveling my character. That is not to say, for the most part, if you're on a casual level, you probably wouldn't care and you probably would not need it. However, if you end up trying to go to a very competitive clan battle, that's where it starts becoming a lot more difficult, and you have to be more careful on upgrading on that one if you ever want to get into a competitive clan battle. Gacha. Okay, so let's talk about the gacha. Gacha here has, it's pretty standard, followed a lot of the most recent gacha games nowadays, where basically there's a pity system and there's a rate up characters, and then there's the standard characters, and if you end up trying to pull and you end up not being lucky, then you will have a chance to get the character if you pull enough amount. The current pull here is 300 in JP. It is 200, so eventually we will end up trying to catch up to JP, and it'll eventually become 200 as well. You end up getting these coins, Princess Arena coins and Battle Arena coins, and these Battle Arena coins and Princess Arena coins are then used for the shop, and for these shop you end up buying shards, which are basically duplicates of character, or you can actually unlock the character themselves. If you never ever pulled the character, you can use these to unlock the character as well. And so these are kind of additional progress. There's also dungeon coins that you get from it, and then you will also get a bunch of other characters in there. And then there's also the clan battle that I also talked about earlier, and probably actually these units usually don't really care. You only care about Makoto actually, so for the most part you're just gonna be buying this one anyway. Alright, endgame or dailies, weekly routine. For the dailies, let's just talk about the dailies, because at the end of the day that's gonna be what you're gonna be doing every single day for however long that you're gonna be playing this game. In the most general sense, you just want to burn your stamina. You're gonna pick which one you kind of want. You're gonna look for what gears you're gonna need to farm, because you're gonna be constantly farming gears. This game is something where you're gonna be constantly farming for your gears. You're gonna be constantly farming for your shards, that these shards are used for duplicates and powering up your character. So you're gonna be constantly picking those things up. You're gonna find what exactly are the ones that you're gonna need if you know what you need, and if you're lacking on those, you kind of try to stock up on them. That's just one part of it. Another part is everything else that are on this page, on the quest page. There's the grotto, which you get 2 attempts per day, and then if you have like a pass, if you paid for it, you can do more times per day. And these are pretty straightforward. You're just gonna be using skip tickets, as I've been doing on the dailies as well. Initially you might not have enough of these tickets, but you're gonna end up having a lot more skip tickets eventually, to the point that you're having trouble actually using them all up. And using skip tickets, just kind of burning through the grotto, the sanctum survey, and the stamina for other things. These ones are also used for your gears as well, and they're just other things. It's actually kind of common to use gems to refresh for stamina. Most suggested one, especially for new players coming in trying to catch up, is to refresh your stamina 3 to 6 times per day. The gem income is actually a lot more forgiving. You get a lot of gem income eventually if you do all the contents, if you do all the events, if you do the PvP as well. You're gonna be doing that. Dungeon is another one. Alright, so for dungeon, let's just show you real quick. It's basically just a string of normal battle fights that's gonna end up leading into a boss fight. This is probably what you're gonna spend a lot of time on at the beginning. Your units are gonna struggle a lot, but eventually it's gonna become a lot easier, and you're just gonna auto these, moving your way up to the boss fight, and it's gonna be up to you whether you want to do this particular boss fight or not. Some people kind of just skip the boss fight because sometimes it takes them time and effort just to clear it. So most of the time some people just hit until the last one and then they just leave the boss. So this one doesn't have skip tickets. I believe in JP there's a lot more easier way to do it, but for us right now we have to manual that one. And then here's the PvP. and there's the PvP, and based on your rankings you get a certain amount of gems. And then there's another one which is the Princess Arena. The main difference here is you set up 3 different parties instead. So whenever there's a new event, most of the time people would want to use up all their stamina during the event, because event is usually gives you a lot of materials, so you want to do them. And in the events, it's very straightforward as well, similar to how you're doing your basic dailies. You're gonna end up doing these. Burn your stamina. You typically, whenever there's an event, there's a new character or other character here, and you can get their shards from it, so you want to do that daily. That's probably the most common suggestion that people end up doing. And other than that, doing one boss once per day so that you can do the dailies of the event, because the event has kind of its own separate dailies. You just kind of end up doing all of these. And other than that, that's basically, I would say at the fundamental level, that's how your dailies end up doing. And depending on what your goals are, you could do it within 5 minutes to 15 minutes, and it could go up to 30 minutes depending on what you want to min-max on. If you want to just do the basic minimum amount of progression, I would say it takes about roughly between 5 to 10 minutes. But if you want to do PvP as well, and then you want to do the boss, and maybe you have to manual on some specific bosses, so you have to manual it instead of just autoing like what I just did just now, then you would end up doing 30 minutes more, additional 20 minutes maybe. PvP also just takes time, because after you've done one, there's a cooldown. If you just do one PvP, there's 5 minutes that it takes before you can do another PvP for that same battle. So if you want to be very efficient, what you would probably do is do PvP, the normal PvP, and then the Princess Arena PvP, and then you do other dailies while the cooldown is happening, and then you come back to it and then do the PvP again, so that at least you're trying to be efficient on your time. Most of the time, at least for what I did, I just did one PvP per day. I just did the PvP and then the Princess Arena PvP, and then I did all the other dailies, and usually it takes me between 10 minutes to 15 minutes on that one, because you know we have to watch the animations and things like that. I think in particular what takes the most time are the dungeon, because you cannot skip ticket them, and the PvP. And so the faster you can kind of optimize your team so that you don't have to spend a lot of time doing them, the better. What I typically do for PvP is I usually have like some kind of generic team that handles whatever, and I just don't look at the enemy team. There are the different ways that people kind of do it. Some people, if they are really competitive on the PvP side of things, they will just use different teams to handle different meta compositions typically. And that's what people end up using to deal with the enemies. There's like some site out there you can see what the enemies composition are. So what you can do is you can enter their composition, and then some people have put in their suggested or recommended team, and for the most part it has like a very high success rate depending on those websites. It's a pretty helpful website, especially if you ever want to be competitive in PvP. But the way the PvP works here is just, it's as simple as it's an offline AI, right? So you can try to counter what the enemy team have, and then try to adjust your team so that you can use a team that's efficient to it. If you do end up trying to upgrade for PvP though, it gets very resource intensive, that it might affect your resource that you would end up using for clan battle, because some units for PvP don't overlap with the units that are used for clan battle. And so sometimes you are, for majority of the players actually, I would say you end up trying to decide between which ones you want to go to. I would say for majority of the players, they would actually set up for clan battle units instead. And also when you're trying to go for a competitive clan, they would look at the meta units that are used for clan battle rather than your meta units for PvP, because for the most part PvP is more for personal enjoyment, achievement, rather than for the guild. So if you're ever trying to look for competitive guild where there's like very competitive people, you would want to try to upgrade units that are clan based. For Luna Tower, it's basically just makes you so that your units status or HP carries over to the next round, and you just try to climb as high as you can, and then on a daily basis it allows you to have full refresh and fully heal your units. There's probably other similar games out there that have similar mechanics on that. The goal is to just basically climb as high as you can, and then you just get rewards. I would say this is more as a side feature. It's not really that competitive because it's just for personal gains. It's just additional resource that you appreciate. For majority of the people, you end up just going for the clan battle really, because everything else doesn't seem that much involved. A lot of people treat PvP as just a resource just to upgrade their units that are then used for clan battle. And so for many people, really a lot of their progression, a lot of their decision making on the game revolves around clan battle. If we really have to just think about what units should I pull, what units should I upgrade, and things like that, most of the time people revolve things about the clan battle. So what's the basically, what do you kind of expect in the future more really on this game? I'll be honest with you, I don't think it really changes that much from what it is. You get new story, there's new gears, you upgrade your units, and then there's clan battle, and then there's Luna Tower, and then you get new units, new story. That content cycle is very basic. What probably people would end up trying to go for is the story. I think the story is very subjective across the road. Some people don't really think about the story that much, but one thing that you can appreciate on this game is the story has voice acting.
プリンセスナイトはギルド名じゃない。どっかで変なこじつけが行われたんだ。そうじゃない。プリンセスナイトっていうのは。So that one scene was just basically just from the main story, and it was actually shown in game. It doesn't actually download everything. They have a lot of anime cutscenes. They do have a lot of production value at the very least on trying to tell the story. There's voice acting involved. There's a lot of extras for additional characters that you, if you want to see what the story is, and there's also character stories, which I think one of the strong points on this game. One of the good things about in this gacha game, and I would say in many gacha games that you want to, is the characters, and seeing these characters get a lot of exposure. There's so many different characters that you will likely end up picking one favorite one or two, and that's the good thing about this game, is you end up being attached to one of these, all these new characters out there, and you just pick your favorite and for at that point, and so you just see which one you end up liking. And a lot of the characters in here usually have like one or two quirks or whatever features that they have that you end up liking, and that's usually what ends up sticking to a lot of people here. So let's say you're starting out as a newbie right now in 2022 or whatever time you're watching this. Is it hard to catch up? It's not hard, but it takes time and effort. This game is meant so that you are pushing it over time. You cannot get to endgame that fast because your player level is tied between your stamina, and the amount of stamina that you have is also the amount of EXP that you get over time. I believe one stamina is equal to 1 EXP, so I just used 20. I just gained 20 EXP here, which is on a 20 stamina stage, and so you're just gonna level up over time. This is something where you have to constantly spend time on, at least once a day. Spend your stamina. That's the steadiest way to level up.
you're gonna eventually catch up because the game constantly puts out stopping points or block points where people actually reach the EXP cap and they cannot progress anymore. And so for beginners who are consistently playing the game, they're constantly gonna go, they can still progress over time, while other players who are ahead of you are paused. And that's one way to catch up in terms of the level. However, for the gears, a lot of the late game issues right now really comes from the mana right now, which, because mana is basically, you can think about it as like the gold on this game, the currency. It's used for everything, for upgrading your levels, upgrading your equipments, upgrading your skills. They all use mana, and because of how so many units are in here and available, you end up using up a lot of mana, right? And so as a beginner, you're typically just gonna focus on your core main team that's gonna help you progress through the main story. The core clan battle units are probably the most that people spend their mana on, and other than that, PvP is gonna be really difficult, especially as a new player, because you're gonna need to spend your mana between clan battle, PvP, and that could end up being really difficult. But worry not, because typically what they do as a new player, you will end up playing in PvP against other new players as well, because of how, again, how you see this one. For example, in Princess Arena, there's only 15,000 maximum here, and I would say probably in this particular bracket that I am in, probably half of them are bots anyway. You're gonna be playing against other players who put in your same bracket. So the PvP, you don't need to worry about being behind against everyone, because you're likely going to be put into a PvP bracket who are also new players as you. So that one is fine. So that's why majority of the people, whenever they're trying to progress, majority of them will try to progress through using units that are for clan battle. Is it free to play friendly? Yes, I would say majority of the time, majority of the characters that end up being available are actually all of these characters. I would say there are some units that are just actually limited. So one example I would say is Summer Carol. There's very limited number of units that are actually limited. Majority of the units actually end up being a normal unit, and so eventually they will become available, and you can retrieve all these, you can get them through here, you can farm their shards, or they become available in the shop. And that way you don't really have to actually immediately get every single character. Well, for the most part, most people actually save up their jewels and then try to save up for limited characters instead. And because they're spitty, typically by the time that this particular limited character comes up, because they're spitty, they will eventually get them. Because as long as you play over time, you will end up just getting it. It does require a lot of resistance to pulling though, so you have to hold yourself a lot, and sometimes some people don't like that. Is it pay to win? So there's a difference when I say free to play friendly and pay to win. Yes, it is free to play friendly, because as a free to play you are able to compete at the topmost level also, and as long as you put in time, you're gonna end up there. Is it pay to win? Yes, also. As a gacha game, whenever there's like a new character, typically that becomes the meta. For PvP, sometimes, like if you never had that character, sometimes you're just kind of screwed on. It's not necessarily screwed because there's so many characters out there, but like it's gonna be a struggle to climb up. However, looking at this, going back at here, see all of these characters that people are using in the top rankings right now are units that are actually free to play. These are free to play units out there that you can purchase. All these units are very relatively easy to get. This one is like a limited event character, but the other ones that are used here are, this unit is 1-star base, this unit is also 1-star character base, this character is on the shop that you can purchase. Yeah, Tumugi. Okay, yeah, okay, so wow, those PvP units are actually
the meta right now are basically free-to-play units. So to a degree, like, you can definitely compete at a high level even as free-to-play, right? Because all of those units are actually basically these are basically free-to-play units. For example, whenever there's a unit, one example is this character Ilya here. She ended up when she first came out, she was basically in every team. And so I guess you cannot help but say, oh yeah, well, okay, when that meta happened, it is free pay to win. So to a degree, I would say it is pay to win, but not to a very hard extent, because even as free to play, you are definitely fine. I know a lot of people that are in top 10 clans that are free to play, and you don't need to pay to necessarily be a top player in this game. But it is pay to win just by the nature of being gacha. However, it's not really that bad that I would say it's that extreme.
Is it maintenance friendly? This question is something that will come up in my future reviews as well, because I actually value the answer to this one when deciding whether to continue playing the game or not. I think there's a few descriptions I could give this term. For one, if you AFK or stop playing for a while, or have to significantly reduce your time playing the game, is your account still in good condition compared to the latest contents? Do you feel compelled that you need to log in every day in order to catch up? In this type of question, the answer would be no. It is not maintenance friendly for Princess Connect. Due to the constant both vertical and horizontal progression in this game, if you stop playing for a while, it will take a while before your account will be up to par against to other people again. But it's not like your account is bad or you should reroll a new account when you try to come back. All your previous progress still matters, and it's fine to come back. It might just take a time for your account to be up to par again. Another description I would define maintenance friendly is do you have to put a lot of effort on a day-to-day basis? In this question, I would say that yes, Princess Connect is actually maintenance friendly, with the dailies only taking roughly 5 to 15 minutes at minimal effort, and the skip tickets. The game is actually not bad as a side game where you can get a lot of progression with minimal effort on a day-to-day basis. I think a game being maintenance friendly is an important factor for my enjoyment in a game. Sometimes I do get burnt out, or there are other things happening in my life, or there's new games that I want to play. Sometimes trying to keep up with the gacha game ends up being a nuisance, and as I play more and more gacha games, this question is becoming more and more important to me. Or maybe I'm just getting old.
How's the community? I would say my exposure on the community really is from my Twitch, my guild, and a little bit of the public Discord and Reddit, I guess. And for the most part, everyone's been positive actually. A lot of the people like how the game is as the progress, and the general consensus for the community is very positive on it. As you can probably see as well, there's a lot of downloads happening because you end up seeing that this game does get a lot of recommendations from people as a casual game. A lot of people were very skeptic when they heard that Crunchyroll was the publisher, but overall it's been very positive as well. This game probably was one of Crunchyroll's redeeming games out there. In the past, and they had really bad history from the community, they shut down a lot of the games, but for the most part right now in terms of Princess Connect, it's been pretty positive. Yeah, that's basically it. This video I've been kind of planning for a really long time now. I plan to make this even before the anniversary come out, but things just pile up one after another, so I've been putting it on hold. This series is gonna be a very long-term series. It's not just, Princess Connect. I'm gonna add in more other games out there that I played before, and I plan on covering them more in an in-depth detail to just give a rundown of how the game feels like. A lot of the reviews out there are just talking about their initial impressions, but how does the game feel like after this long, after you've been playing it for this particular amount of time? And it's something that Obviously, the output of this series is not gonna be very frequent due to the nature of it. It's gonna take just a lot of time just to fully experience what the late game feels like, and I want to make this as a long-term series. So yeah, if you guys end up just kind of enjoying the content, feel free to like and subscribe and leave a comments down below if you are a new player, players looking for this game to see what it does feel like over time, and if you're an existing player, maybe just want to laugh at how stupid my account is or whatever that case may be, right? I will be putting more of these kinds of videos for many other different games, and yeah, constantly I will be streaming on Twitch, so I will be seeing you guys over there. Link will be on the screen or on the description down below. So yeah, that's gonna be it for me, guys, and yeah, thank you all for stopping by, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.